What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart. We're wrapping up the end of the week here. The Bitcoin price has really been stuck in kind of a range here ever since Monday. So this is when we started Monday morning. Here we are Friday afternoon, and not a whole lot changing here on the Bitcoin price chart. Now, yesterday's video, I pointed to how the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, Bitcoin, all reaching up here near the 4.236, reaching the euphoria phase of a market. And boy, did I see similar behavior of what happens with sentiment in this market. Now, you have to understand, when I look at markets, I'm looking at the broader perspective of the market. When we're reaching up to 4.236 extensions for everything, like Bitcoin, like the Dow Jones, and like the NASDAQ, this is all the euphoria phase of a market. And I forget that sometimes in the cryptocurrency market, the sentiment can flip and flop based on what's going on every single day. Merely 3 weeks ago, the vast majority of people in this market believed that we were going to $100,000 for Bitcoin. Now, the market is in fear, and it's been in fear for several weeks at this point. It does say neutral right here, but it's really referring to Friday of last week. It was neutral. But as we can see here, it's really been down here in fear. And as you can see, we had quite an extended period, October 7th all the way through November 15th, where the market was greedy. So as we have this pullback here on Bitcoin, sentiment has flopped. The general herd behavior is incredibly predictable, and I try to share that with you of how predictable it is, in which you could see how many people reacted to my video prior to even watching it. All the exact same comments. So people are massively on edge right now, emotionally swung. I'm not sure if it's because it's looking unlikely that their $200,000 Bitcoin price target is going to get hit or their $100,000 price target is going to get hit. I do know that there are some predictions out there that said that we needed to be near $100,000 at the end of the November close, which of course we didn't come close to that. That may be casting doubt on that. So as we head now into December, people are a little bit more worried that, wait a minute, maybe this market isn't going to be as euphoric as I thought it was going to be, for at least for the Bitcoin price, which I've never thought it was. I think the best case for it here is if it can even get up there to the top of the 4.236 extension, maybe peak a little bit higher than that, like it's done in previous super cycles. But for the most part, we're at the euphoric phase of Bitcoin on the big grand scale. But for some reason yesterday, the sentiment in particular was really poor. And I want to talk about that really quick because it's not just for me. I noticed other content creators really posting that the sentiment was in the gutter yesterday. And then I was noticing other people that I follow, because on Twitter, I don't just follow crypto people. I follow economists, I follow oil experts, metals experts. I follow other people who have been in this financial market for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And I was seeing repetitive patterns of even people who do stock market stuff that what is going on with Twitter today? Why is the sentiment so low? People who were not even related to crypto. And I think we've kind of just reached a breaking point for the sentiment for a lot of people. And I was really beating my head against the wall saying, why is the sentiment so incredibly low today in particular? Why has it reached this point? And while we've now been at these lower prices for 2 weeks at this point for Bitcoin, pulling back, Bitcoin broke out above its all-time high. People were expecting the price to go to $100,000. It didn't happen. It reversed. And now it's been stuck down here for 2 weeks. But it didn't make much sense to me on why yesterday in particular the sentiment was so low. I just started kind of looking around and looking at what was our last correction like, because as you can see, Bitcoin's been in a rally since September 21st all the way until November 10th. So you got like 2 months of grinding upward price action. Finally, a real pullback, a new low getting set over here. And so sentiment has certainly changed. I said, well, let's take a look at our last correction and see how bad things were in there. And if you look at how long that correction was, you can see that from a time perspective and depth perspective, nearly the same. We'll flip it over to log to get another look at it from the log angle as well. And we could see, hey, look at that. Just about exactly the same, just about the same amount of time. So when corrections are completed, that's when people have really thrown in the towel and they've kind of given up. And we can see that from a time perspective and a depth perspective, this correction has been the same. So, give it another day or two, and from a time perspective, it will have equaled the last one, which is a total of about 23, 24 days. So we're on day, 22, 23. So we haven't seen this type of a correction in Bitcoin since back in September, and you can see that it is nearly of equal length and time of the last correction. And really the market's been kind of spoiled because ever since July, that's the only correction that ended up coming out of here. So go back and think to sentiment of what it was like at that time, what was happening in that time period. This was where Michael Saylor and the El Salvador stuff, buy Bitcoin to support, and then what happens? It breaks down. Sentiment's still in the gutter because why? People still were not convinced that Bitcoin was going to recover at that point. It had not gotten through any of the retracement levels at that point, or at least not the big primary ones for me. It didn't get through the 702 retracement, got rejected pretty hard. Market sentiment was very, very poor. Then climbs back up, sets new all-time highs. What happens? So you have to kind of get an idea of what happens with market sentiment when a new all-time high gets set. I was in there listening to the Twitter Spaces. I was, paying attention to what was going on in the market. The messaging and retail investors was that once that new all-time high gets cracked, institutions are going to buy this thing like crazy. And what happened? It didn't. It turned over on itself. So people get wrong-footed, right? So that's kind of the difference here. They're not really the difference, actually, if you think about it. Back in the last correction, people bought the top because they were buying it for the Michael Saylor support El Salvador accepting Bitcoin as a currency. And then the market turned over. So the market participants bought the top once again. And then over here at the all-time high, they did the same thing, right? Broke out into an all-time high. That confirmed them. We were not in a bear market. We were in a bull market. So buy the all-time high, price turns over. So market participants have gotten wrong-footed on both of these corrections. But the thing is, if you look at it from a depth perspective and a time perspective, it's still of equal length, right? The big thing that I'm watching for, of course, like we've talked about for the last week and a half, is that level to hold. Because if that level holds, then we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've gone into extreme detail on this. This would still be the top of the Bitcoin bull run. I do not think we're going to hit $100,000. I think $200,000 is absolutely out of the question. No chance. And I don't think 100,000 is either. I know it gets a lot of clicks and it gets a lot of attention to put those types of price targets out there because that's what people want to hear. And I understand that, but there's no way I could come onto my channel with the data sets that we have and say that it's likely. All the data sets point to it being incredibly unlikely that $100,000 ever gets hit. I think the best scenario to be cheering for is for Bitcoin to hold this level, go on and set one new high. The altcoin market runs with it, but that's still the end of the Bitcoin bull run. And then as Bitcoin's going into its retracement, the altcoin market still continues to go. And then that's the end of the Bitcoin bull run. That's the best scenario I can draw right now for what's going on in this market. If that $53,000 price level doesn't hold, then I think we've already confirmed that the top of the Bitcoin bull run's already in. And the only thing remaining in this market is to watch to see what the altcoin market does after that. But for some reason, the sentiment has gotten really poor. And what's really funny though is that I can study all the statistics of my YouTube channel and see that my subscriber growth actually grew yesterday. So I'm curious if what that potentially means is that people may be more willing and accepting of the fact that $100,000 for Bitcoin is not going to happen now. And they may be listening a little bit more. But at the same time, a huge group of people have now just been massively disappointed and are starting to come to the conclusion that, wait a minute, something doesn't smell right. I don't think it's going to hit 100K. And then deep down inside of them, that's incredibly disappointing to finally accept that, because it's been fun to use me as a punching bag for a while to say, you're wrong. We're going to 150. We're going to 200. We're going to 300. Blockchain backer. And there's nothing euphoric about this. And you have to understand, 3 weeks ago you were euphoric, and then now you're not euphoric. That's not how I'm operating on time frames. I'm operating on time frames like this. That yes, this market absolutely is euphoric. And this market, the stock market, is absolutely euphoric. And while it may not feel like it on a day-to-day time frame, there may be scary days, there may be fun days. The reality is the market is euphoric because the market has come to believe there's no way out of this. The only thing that can happen is stocks have to go up. Debt's out of control, money printing's out of control, inflation's out of control. There's nothing we can do to stop it, and therefore stocks cannot fall. Asset prices cannot fall because inflation is going to run rampant and the dollar is going to fall apart. That is euphoria. That is a new paradigm. That is a belief that things cannot change. Whether or not you're euphoric today or you are euphoric tomorrow doesn't change the fact that the market in itself is in euphoria and nearing peak euphoria, because the underlying belief system is that the market can't go down and that inflation can't stop and that deflation can't happen. And for that, we enter a new paradigm. And so we can look through these comments and see how many times we're not euphoria. It feels euphoria out here? Euphoria? We must be looking at different things. Glad I'm not the only one feeling depressed. I'm seeing red all over the board. Where do you see euphoria? If this is euphoria, then I'm a grumpy. What euphoria? I'm still in fear. Define euphoria, because I can't sense it. What euphoria? What euphoria? I don't really feel the euphoria part. Hold your horses. No one is euphoric yet. It's very predictable to be able to figure out what's going to happen with sentiment in this market. And if you remember 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, I said, everybody's a cool customer right now. I spent a month warning about Bitcoin, and during that time period, I was the punching bag for being wrong. That no, Bitcoin's going to over $100,000. I said, look, everybody's a cool customer right now, but I know what happens in this market. And if you think this is a sign of what will come later down the pike, so first of all, I think there's still more euphoria to come in this market. But if you think this is bad, if you think this is depressing, I am going to warn you right now, when that bear market does set in, this doesn't even come close to what's coming down the pike later. And so what was really incredibly interesting about all that is I put a lot of work in my videos. I don't try to spit out hopium in my videos. I back up everything that I say with some type of data and stats, right? So I don't just grab random things and show random things. I try to outline everything so it's incredibly easy to understand. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an investment advisor, but I try to show you all the data in the non-speculative way that I can. Like, we all, this is all just a guessing game, right? That's what anything is in markets. Investing is risky. We're all taking risks. We're taking our best guesses, but I try to provide the data that seems the most realistic. I don't just try to grab hopium fractals and say this is what is going to happen because it's the hopium price targets that we want to hit. I try to back everything up to say this is how things have historically worked throughout the history of the cryptocurrency market, and these are the things that we have seen happen before, and provide all the data to show it to you and allow you to make your own decisions on whatever you want to do. I'm just part of the research process, right? But what you noticed in that is all these people just jumping on it before ever watching the video. And that's the exact thing that happens in the toxic, depressive, fear-driven sentiment state, emotional state of the retail investor crowd, the retail investor herd. When they jump on things like that with a negative perception and a negative reaction before ever watching anything. So that's not me upset at anything or upset at anyone. That's me showing you this is where the state of the market is at right now. This is how emotionally volatile people are right now. 3 weeks ago, they were all hooting and hollering for $100,000. I put all the polls out there to ask what the sentiment was like, right? $100,000, no problem, it's happening. Right now, they are all super, super furious, toxic, depressed, and frustrated as a collective whole. That's not going to be for every individual, but as a collective whole. That's where the market's at right now. It's very predictable to pinpoint these things. And for some reason, it has really taken off in just the last day or two. And the conclusion I can draw from that is just that we have been in this correction for the same amount of time and the same depth as our last one. And this is the emotional breaking point for most people. So if you find yourself in that same scenario where you're feeling exactly like what all those comments are looking like, or if you're feeling fear just like the rest of the market is feeling, then you're in line with the retail investor group. And if you notice, I'm always trying to be the opposite of what they are. Notice my tune is turning around and being more optimistic that good times are coming. Yet, for a month prior, I was warning of Bitcoin. That doesn't do a great, tremendous amount for subscriber growth if you're trying to feed the narrative that people want to hear at the time. The thing people want to hear right now is scared, fear. Oh no, that's the messaging that they're all feeling, so that's what they're going to click on. When the market is euphoric and excited and greedy and wants 100K, it's time to put out the 200K prediction videos, right? With a big thumbnail saying, we're going to 300K. Whatever, 5 million. Because that's what people want to hear at the time. And so I'm never feeding that. I'm always operating on how I'm supposed to operate. I'm supposed to be worried when prices are high, and I'm supposed to be excited when prices are low. but that's the opposite of what sentiment is. And so if you're on that sentiment side of you're just like reaching this breaking point, you're in fear, you're immediately jumping to toxic conclusions, recognize that behavior and what that is. And I talk about it all the time about keeping an emotional log. And I've talked about this for years on my channel at this point, and I hope somebody out there has kept like a pretty good, decent emotional log and gone back and reflected on what it was like what their emotions were like back in February, March, and April, and what their emotions were like back in June and July, and then saying, recognizing the feelings that they were having at those times. Because when you can go back and look at that and say, man, this is how I was feeling. These are the actions I wanted to take at that time. But what should I have done when I was feeling that way? When I was feeling really depressed back in May and June and July and feeling really pessimistic, and I was sitting there yelling at people that just admit that it's a bear market on Twitter and on YouTube comments, what should I really have been doing during that time? Or back in February, March, April, and May, when everybody was putting laser eyes and diamond hands on their profiles, and they were screaming, "We're going to 100K," and everybody was really euphoric, and I was really euphoric with them. What should I really have been doing during that time? And the reality is, we all come to the conclusion to recognize that whatever our emotional state is, if it's in line with what everybody else has, it's usually wrong. And we have to do something that goes against our own instinctive DNA engraved behaviors, because these are protective mechanisms that we've learned to, go with the herd, or they protect us in bad situations, and realize that those don't work here. And you have to do what actually feels bad to be successful in here. When you're feeling really optimistic and you're feeling really bullish after the prices have already gone up, what's the thing you have to do? You have to sell it. And you're like, dude, I don't want to do that. I want this thing to keep riding. This is awesome. This feels really good. I'm getting that adrenaline rush. I'm liking this. I don't want this to end. I have to sell and it has to be over now. Or when things are really depressing and really scary and the world is screaming that the sky is falling apart, what should I have done during that time? And so I'm not sitting here saying this is the greatest time to buy this market in any way. I mean, we know what the thing is. It's got to hold that $53,000. But I want to always show you what the sentiment is like. Like I just showed you 3 weeks ago what the sentiment was like. I showed you that the sentiment was euphoric. The sentiment was thinking that we weren't going to have a big, massive crash. The sentiment was that we're going to over $100,000. And that was the sentiment at the time. The sentiment was greedy. And now, right now, I'm showing you the sentiment is in the gutter. So, what can we draw from that? When the sentiment was greedy and euphoric on a shorter time frame, prices reverse. The last time we had a correction of this size, this magnitude, and this length was right back in here, prices reversed. So, just from some food for thought, because I think that that's one of the biggest growing pains that we all go through in this market is really just managing our emotions. And you can see that you could just see it, how everybody gets on the same page. They all get really happy, really excited together. Then they all get really pessimistic, toxic, and depressive together. But they're also the same group, always getting wrong footed. So food for thought. Otherwise, looking at the charts and the things that I'm going to be looking at heading into the weekend, it's going to be the things that we talked about at the beginning of the week. So I said this week would probably be kind of a repetitive week, same story. And as some of you probably noticed, I didn't even make a video on Wednesday. I tried putting one together, but in the end, I said I recorded and edited a video, not really feeling it. I also don't want to repeat myself from yesterday. There comes a point where you just throw your hands in the air and say, that's it. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm going to go enjoy it. So that's what I'm going to do. And so as we head into the weekend, I'm going to do exactly that still. I'm going to go out and enjoy my weekend, because the whole week was just sitting here in these price levels of the 56s and the 57s all week long, with nothing really happening over here on the Bitcoin price chart. And really, whenever the sentiment in the market gets to this type of point, it is best for people to just step away and go enjoy life. You could stare at that screen all you want, wanting to magically force it with Jedi superpowers to make it go up. It doesn't mean it's going to make it happen. Go enjoy life. Set an alert on your phone for $53,000. If it doesn't go below $53,000, hey, there's nothing to even really talk about on the price chart for Bitcoin and the broader perspective of the cryptocurrency market. Should it break below $53,000, it will have confirmed to me that this structure is completed, the thing that helped us get through May, June, and July to go on to set new all-time highs, which here on the inverse price chart would mean we go set new lows. We did end up getting it. If we break back up above 53,000, that tells to me that this thing is done. But until then, there's nothing really to talk about with the Bitcoin price chart. And the thing that we're really looking for is to see if this price level can hold and go on and set one new all-time high. In 2013 and 2017, as Bitcoin held this price level, both bull cycles, it did go off for one more rally. The altcoin market went with it. That's the thing that I'm going to be looking for and leaning on right now. But should that $53,000 break, it tells me the structure is done. The Bitcoin bear market has begun. But just because the Bitcoin bear market has begun does not mean that the altcoin bear market has begun. Also, in 2013 and 2017, the Bitcoin bear market started way before the altcoin market did, and the altcoin market rallied significantly into the Bitcoin retracement. So, either way, it's just a wait on Bitcoin to tell us what the story is going to be for the altcoin market and when the altcoin market's going to have its turn. And until then, we can stare at paint drying on the wall. It's not going to make it dry any faster. But I would have to say, seeing all this fear in the market already is not how I've seen tops happen before. Usually by the time that fear strikes, it's already way too late. And this pullback has gone as deep as the previous pullback and taken almost just as much time as the one that happened in September. So those are some optimistic things to see for price recovery. But all right. That'll be it, guys. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I hope that you do have an opportunity to step away from this. Go enjoy your family. Go outside. Have some fun. I know that I am going to. The kids are going to grandparents' houses this weekend. So, wife and I are going to have a date night. That's going to be cool. But I hope that you as well also have a wonderful weekend. So, all right, that's going to be it. That's going to wrap it up for the week. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you're looking for something to do throughout the weekend, you can check out my website over here, which is bcbacker.com. This is a course that I put together where I deep dive into the previous Bitcoin bull runs, the previous altcoin market cycles, tying them all together to show how they've worked in the past. I talk about my personal exit plans in here, and I teach you how to set up your own charts and your own indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. I talk a lot about mathematics and percentages and why those are so important to me. And I did just recently add the exit plan for Ethereum Part 4 final update and the blockchain backer exit plan Part 4 progress update. And just a couple of days ago, I added in the November 30th market update. So Bitcoin hit 69,000, altcoin market cycle similarities to ending phases. And you can check out all of this educational content over here on bcbacker.com. You could follow me over here on Twitter at bcbacker, and I want to thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.